Are you a guy who's feeling lost in these menswear streets and wants to build a timeless wardrobe that turns heads? If you're not in agreement, then I want to link with you for a complimentary Step Up Your Menswear Discovery Call. In this informative 20-minute session, I'll dissect your current fashion choices and identify where you might be missing out on opportunities to enhance your style game, all while staying true to classic menswear principles. Whether you're a professional, a businessman, or simply someone seeking to upgrade your style game, the Step Up Your Menswear Discovery Call is tailor-made for you. Book a slot on my calendar today by going to I'mNotAGentleman.com and click on the Work With Me tab. Peace.
I'm Not a Gentleman is a production of ChaseandRider.com.
A wise man once said, "No one cares that your wrist is icy and your suit costs a lot if it don't fit you nicely." Truer words have never been spoken, man. Yo, what's good? Welcome to I'm Not a Gentleman, the show designed to help you look stylish without following trends. I'm your host, Vladimir Riché from ChaseandRider.com, and your favorite menswear YouTuber's favorite menswear YouTuber. I've helped dozens of clients and hundreds of students and viewers feel more confident by looking their best and always making a great first impression. Have you ever wondered how a suit should fit? Or can a tailor just fix it if it doesn't fit right? What about how long should your trousers be? In this episode, I will discuss exactly what makes fit so crucial and the one thing that no tailor can fix. Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Vladimir Riché for behind the scenes footage, early access, and bonus episodes. Intro.
Back in that bag again. Whoa.
Now, when it comes to suits, there are 3 different types that you can get. The first option is an off-the-rack suit. And that's where you go to a store and they have a ton of selections for you to pick from. And then you get the size that's closest to your size. So what I mean is, like, when you walk into a store and you see that a suit is a size 44, for example, the 44, those are your shoulder measurements. So you're going to pick that suit and try it on to see how it fits you. But more than likely, like a good 99% chance, it's not going to fit you perfectly. So you're going to have to do some alterations. So getting something that fits you really well off the rack is possible, but it's still going to take some alterations to really get it where you want it to be. But just keep in mind, when it comes to off the rack, it's very tricky. So 2 guys can be a size 44, but their body look completely different. One guy could be muscular and one guy could be a little chubby. It just so happened that they have the same shoulder measurements. So don't think just because you're a size 44 that automatically the suit is going to fit you perfectly. That's really not likely. Usually, off-the-rack suits, on average, cost around $500. Of course, there are exceptions. Some places you'll find them for less. But around $500, I would say, is probably the average for an off-the-rack suit, or a good off-the-rack suit. The second option is a custom suit, or some people refer to it as a MTM, or made to measure. And this is where you go to a store like Suit Supply. And of course, they carry off-the-rack suits, but they would also have a custom section. And this is where you go and you look at different swatches to see what you want your suit to be made out of. And then a clothier would take your measurements, and then they would make the suit based off that. Now, even though it is a custom suit that's based off your measurements, there are still limitations. So, for example, I remember I got a suit made from a company named Kent Wing, a custom suit, and I wanted to have an extended waistband, so they couldn't really change it to make an extended waistband, even though the suit was custom. Another example is Spear & Mackay. Like, if you live in Canada, you can walk into a Spear & Mackay and get measured for a custom suit. Now, even though the suit is custom, the trousers rise can only go up to 13 inches. Now, don't get me wrong, a custom suit is still a really good option, but not only are there limitations, but you're also at the mercy of the clothier. If the clothier is not that good, or if the clothier doesn't really understand what you're looking to get done, the final product may suffer. So that's why it's very important to ask questions when you're getting a suit custom made, just to make sure that you and the clothier are on the same page. Now, as far as price for a custom suit, it depends on the fabric, it depends on the company. But I'd say around $750 to $1,000 is a pretty good start for a good custom suit. Now, the third option is what's called bespoke. And that's the top of the line because there aren't any limitations with bespoke. The only limitation is your budget. That's the one that takes the most time. They have to create a pattern. You might have to come in for a fitting when the suit is not done yet. You might show up and they only have the jacket minus the sleeves, and then they'll attach the sleeves later. But they're just making sure that they have the measurements correctly. So that takes a lot of time, and naturally, the longer it takes, the more money is going to cost. The least expensive bespoke that I've seen is probably around $2,000, and that's on the low end, you know? So for bespoke, it's definitely going to cost you a lot more money, but at the same time, the product should be much better. And, you know, of course, you have to do your research. You have to ask them to see their work. That way, there are no surprises. And also with bespoke, every bespoke house have their own style. So you got to make sure that this is the style that they specialize in. So if a company specializes, let's say, in the English style, where they have more structured shoulders, you don't want to tell them that you want something that has no shoulder pads and that's more Neapolitan, like Italian style. You know what I mean? So you're just going to make sure that what you're looking for is a good marriage for the bespoke house that you want to use. So since there are so many steps to a bespoke suit, it's not unusual for one to take anywhere from 6 months to a year. Versus if you're getting something custom made, MTM, you're probably looking at around a 4 to 6 week turnaround time. But the one that we're going to focus on in this episode is the off-the-rack suit. Because as I was saying, the MTM and the bespoke are based off your measurements. So some of the alterations that we'll be discussing wouldn't be necessary on a bespoke suit or a custom suit. Also, it is the most common suit. Most guys wear off-the-rack suits. Most of my suits are off-the-rack, although I do have a few custom suits as well. All right, let's get into it. Why is fit so important? I'm glad you asked. Now, when it comes to menswear, there are a lot of things that could be attributed to personal style. I like shades of gray, shades of brown, navy, and darker shades of green. While some guys, they might like black. I'm not a big black fan myself. But nothing is really wrong with it per se, but it's just not for me. But some guys like it, you know what I'm saying? And you also have some guys that like to wear more flamboyant colors, which depending on the situation could work, you know what I mean? Another example of personal style could be headgear. Like some guys like to wear hats, fedoras, beanies, or some guys wear no hats at all. Another example, some guys like to wear suspenders and some guys like to wear belts. Some guys like to wear regular neckties and you have guys that like to wear bow ties. Some guys like to wear cuffs on their trousers. Some guys go with no cuffs. Now, one thing that cannot be added to that group is fit. Because when it comes to fit, it's either something fits or it doesn't fit. There's really no in between when it comes to fit. Now, the great thing about personal style is that you don't want all of us to look the same. I think that would be pretty lame for everybody to look the same. So there's definitely room there for individuality. It's just that fit is not one of those things that fits under that category. No pun intended. The thing is, if the fit is not right, nothing else is going to work. So it doesn't really matter how nice somebody's shoes are. And I'm a big shoe proponent. But if the fit ain't right, I don't care what you have on your feet. Also, a lot of guys think that dressing well has to do with how many different patterns they can pull off. I mean, I guess that's cool, but if your suit doesn't fit, it doesn't really matter, man. And also, your tie could be very expensive. I mean, I can really care less if the fit of the suit isn't right, man. A wise man once said, no one cares that your wrist is icy and your suit costs a lot if it don't fit you nicely. Truer words have never been spoken, man. So without further ado, man, let's get into fit. Now, the first thing that I would recommend if you are really looking to be stylish is to have yourself a tailor. A tailor is the person that's going to be watching your back because you won't be able to see everything. And hopefully your tailor is very skilled to where they can notice things that you can't see. And that's what I was saying before. You can't really skip alterations when you're talking about off-the-rack suits because there are certain things that every suit should get altered. So, for example, the sleeve length. So unless you are the perfect model for a certain style of suit, you're going to have to get the sleeves altered. So if you're getting a size 42, you still have to get the sleeves altered because chances are the sleeves are going to be too long. And the same thing with the trousers. Actually, most trousers come unfinished. So you do have to go to a tailor so they can shorten the trousers for you and also finish off the hem because, like I said, a lot of them come unfinished. So that's why having a tailor is necessary. It's not really a choice. You have to have a tailor. Now, those little alterations that I just mentioned could probably be done in-house at most stores, but we're going to get a lot deeper into fit. So that's why you need to have your own tailor and not just rely on the tailor that's at the store. You really need a tailor that knows you so that they can really guide you. And when it comes to suits, obviously a suit is made up of two parts. You have the jacket and you have the trousers. They're both equally as important, although the top gets a lot more attention because it's more visible. So typically when people are sitting down, the jacket is what people are going to see. Even when you're standing up a lot of time, because people are looking at your face, the jacket is going to call more attention to itself in a lot of instances. So we're going to start there, but make no mistake about it, definitely needs to pay attention to both. So the first thing that you need to make sure when it comes to your jacket is that it's not pulling at the buttons. So if you see an X at the buttoning point, that means that the jacket is too tight. And also if you see rolls in the back or rolls on the sides, that's a sign that the jacket is too tight. If you have to suck in your stomach when you button in the jacket, or while the jacket is buttoned, you feel like you're not really comfortable, that's a sign that the jacket is too tight. And in the same token, if you feel like after you button the jacket, there's still a lot of room left, that's a sign that the jacket is too big. The thing about fit is all about finding a balance. You don't want the jacket to be too tight, and you also don't want the jacket to fit like a box. And that's where a lot of men go wrong because they don't really understand truly how a jacket should fit. one thing that I've noticed in my journey is that guys that hate to dress up, they all wear their suits too big versus guys that are really into fashion. A lot of them wear their suits too tight. And I think that's because the guys that like to dress up, they equate tightness with a good fit versus the guys that hate to dress. They really want to be as comfortable as possible, and then when their clothes to fit them like the casual clothes do. So therefore, they're not really looking for something that's going to fit them nicely. They want as much room as possible. And I get it, because if I had to pick one between the tight fit and the loose fit, I would go with the loose fit, because at least I'd be comfortable and I'd be able to breathe. Because there are certain guys that I see, and I'm saying to myself, if this guy sneezes, somebody's eye is going to get taken out. I'm like, there's no way that you're comfortable in that. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen guys that are not even able to bend over and tie their own shoelaces because their clothes is so tight. So a tight fit and a loose fit, neither one is good. Because like I was saying, you need to strike the right balance. But if I had to choose one and I couldn't pick the right fit, I had to pick between a loose fit and a tight fit, I would pick the loose fit. So as I was saying, you don't want the jacket to be pulling and you don't want the jacket to fit like a box. So that's the first thing. But the most crucial part is really the shoulders. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if the jacket is too tight for you, let's say that is your size, but for whatever reason it's too tight around the stomach area, there's a chance that your tailor might be able to let it out. Now, there are limitations because it depends on how much extra fabric is in the suit jacket. So he can only let out but so much. But when it comes to the shoulders of the jacket, that part of the jacket cannot be altered. So if you go to a store to try on a jacket, just make sure first and foremost that you're getting the right size and that the shoulders fit. And the way that you tell is when you look in the mirror and you're looking at your shoulders, you want to make sure that the line is straight. So from your neck to the end of your shoulders, you want to make sure that there's a straight line. So if it looks wavy, that means that the jacket is too tight for you. Or if you look and it looks like you're wearing shoulder pads and the jacket extends way past your natural shoulders, then that jacket is too big. So you want the shoulders to fit just right because, once again, that part cannot be altered. The third thing, as I was saying before, are the sleeves. That's an alteration that's usually a must. And one thing to be on the lookout for also is there are certain stores that sell their suits with working buttonholes on the sleeves, meaning that you can actually undo the buttons. Another word for that is a surgeon cuff. Now, those are cool, assuming that there's not that much alteration that needs to be done to the length, meaning that you don't have to shorten it too much. Because once again, there are buttons there, so there's only so much that a tailor can do as far as shortening the jacket. Once you start getting into the buttons, then you're just going to ruin the jacket. So although it looks cool to have surgeon cuffs, but it only really works if the sleeves of the jacket are pretty close to where they should be after the alteration. Now, I know that there's a way for a good tailor to shorten the jacket sleeves from the shoulder, but not that many tailors can really pull that off because that's like doing major surgery to the suit jacket. But that's the only way to really do it if the suit sleeves has to be shortened by a lot. So just keep that in mind when you're buying your suit, because they may not tell you that at the store, but you might take it to your tailor and find out he can't really shorten it that much because of the working buttonholes. So my advice when you're buying a suit jacket off the rack is to probably stay away from the working buttonholes if you have to shorten the jacket sleeve a lot, because if the buttonholes are not working buttonholes, they can definitely shorten it a lot and just move the buttons to make it look natural versus the shirts and cuffs. You can't do that. The right length is you want the sleeve to end at your wrist bone. That way you can show about 1/4 inch of shirt sleeve underneath. Of course, you can do 3/8, but once you start talking about a 1/2 inch of shirt cuff and longer, then he's going to start looking that either the shirt sleeves are too long or the jacket sleeves are too short. So to me, the sweet spot is around 1/4 inch. 1/2 an inch is kind of pushing it because it's probably not going to look right. But that's just a way to really look well put together when you're showing a little bit of shirt underneath. One mistake a lot of guys make by not getting their suits altered, even if the suit fits right in the body, but if the sleeve of the jacket ends by where your thumb is, that's just a horrible look because it looks like you're wearing somebody else's jacket. Like you're a kid and you're wearing your dad's jacket. But if you're a grown-ass man looking like you're wearing your dad's jacket, can't possibly be a good look, man. So that's why it's important to get the sleeve jackets altered. That way you look like you are well put together. Those are the little things that make a big difference. You know what I mean? I have a funny story with that too, because when I got my first custom suit and custom shirt, I couldn't figure out what was wrong because for the longest time, it looks like the sleeves of the jacket was too short. Because when you're extending your arm to shake somebody's hand, naturally, the jacket is going to pull up a little bit and the shirt sleeve is also going to pull up a little bit. But in my case, the jacket would go up, but you would see like the whole cuff of the shirt. And for the longest time, we couldn't figure out what the problem was until somebody realized that it was the actual cuff of the shirt that was too tight. So even though the jacket was moving naturally, the sleeves of the shirt wasn't. Every time I would extend my arm, you would see the jacket go up, but the shirt would stay in place. And that way it would look like I was showing way too much shirt cuff. So those are little things that you have to pay attention to because they all go hand in hand. Another part that's very important, it's probably one of the most important parts, is the length of the jacket. The rule of thumb is you want the jacket to be able to cover your whole seat. And somehow there's a trend where I see a lot of guys wearing the jacket way too short. So we shouldn't be able to see your ass when you're wearing a jacket. If we can see your ass, that means that the jacket is too short. Once again, there's a simple rule of thumb is to make sure that the jacket always covers your whole seat. Now, of course, you don't want the jacket to be too long either because it's going to shorten your legs and make you look shorter, which is really never good. So please stay away from that trend. I don't know where it started, but I see it a lot, especially on Instagram. Actually, even in person, I see it a lot too. And that's all part of guys thinking that a slimmer fit is the right fit. And I'll never forget it, man. I remember I was reading GQ. That was probably in the early 2000s. And that was one of the things that they had in there saying that actually it was like around 2010, 2009, like in that time frame. But I remember reading that the new trend is to have shorter jackets. So they were saying that when you get a suit, you should get it altered to have the length shortened. Actually, I had a jacket shortened just from listening to GQ. I looked at GQ like they were the style Bible. So if GQ said that was what we were doing, that's what we were doing. You know what I mean? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to include some of those things in the show notes, some links, so you can see pictures of some of the things that I'm talking about. And I should be able to dig in that picture where I'm at the tailor and you can see that he has the jacket pinned to where he was going to shorten it. Oh my God. See, that's why also a good teller is very important, man. I know at the end of the day, a teller has to do what the client wants, but this guy that I used to use, they're not bad an eye when I told them that I needed to shorten my jacket, you know? And I'm thinking right now, the teller that I use now, if I was to ever say that to him, I'm pretty sure he would be like, why do you want to do that? And a right fit should be for your whole seat to be covered. That other guy didn't mention anything like that to me. So just once again, the tailor is very crucial, man. And another thing that you should be paying attention to are the lapels of the jacket, as they should be laying flat on your chest. You don't want the lapel to look like it's an arc. And that's one thing that you'll definitely notice on guys that wear their suit jackets too tight. That's a telltale sign that your jacket don't fit. And a lot of time you'll only really notice it when somebody buttons the jacket. If they leave the jacket unbuttoned, it might look like the lapels are laying flat, but once they button the jacket, that's when the truth comes out. So please pay attention to the lapel. Make sure that they're all laying flat on your chest. And then last but not least is the collar of the jacket. You want to make sure that it hugs the shirt's collar. There shouldn't be any visible gap between the collar of the jacket and the collar of your shirt. And this is what we refer to as the collar gap. And that's something that can destroy your entire look. So you can be well put together and a collar gap can just come in and wreck everything. I have pictures from when I thought I was really doing it and I had a huge collar gap because no one told me about a collar gap. You know what I mean? Like my tailor didn't say anything about it. The good news is if you do have a collar gap, that's something that can be fixed. And what usually causes a collar gap is your posture. And the way that they fix a collar gap is by shortening the collar of the jacket. That way they make it tighter around your neck so that it hugs your shirt. So that's the good news. But the bad news is if you don't know what a collar gap is, you probably never noticed it before. And there's a good chance that you've been walking around with it. So that's why on the podcast, I want to be able to bring those things to your attention just in case you weren't aware. And once again, I will include links in the show notes so that you can see pictures of exactly what I'm talking about. So once again, just to recap, the jacket should fall cleanly with no signs of pulling at the buttons, at the sides, or at the back. The shoulders should fit because if they don't, there's no way to alter them. So when you're buying a suit, that's the first thing that you want to check is that you're getting the right shoulder width. The third thing is the sleeves of the jacket. You want to make sure that they end at your wrist bone. That way you're showing about a 1/4 inch of shirt sleeve underneath. The fourth thing is the length of the jacket. That part is very, very important as it should cover your whole seat. You don't want your ass to show while you're wearing a suit jacket. The fifth thing is the lapels. You want them to lay cleanly on your chest when your jacket is buttoned. And the sixth thing is the collar of the jacket. You don't want no visible gap between the collar of the jacket and the collar of the shirt. So those are the things that you have to pay attention to when it comes to your suit jacket. You know what I mean? Now let's talk about the trousers. As I was saying, they are just as important as the suit jacket. One difference with trousers, though, it does allow more room for personal style and individuality, but you still want to make sure that it fits right. Now, one of the things that you will see, and that's one of the things that set us apart from each other, is what's called a break. The break of the trousers is when you look at the bottom where the pants meet the shoes, is how much of a bend that you see. So if it's a straight line, then that could mean that there's no break there. But if you see that there's a bend, then this is what's called a break. There's a full break, there's a half break, there's no break, which is what I like. So all those things depends on how long you want the trousers to be. There's no right or wrong answer. when it comes to breaks, really, it's really all about individuality. Personally, I like no break on my trousers, meaning that I want the trousers to just be grazing the shoes. But if you want, let's say, a full break, then there's going to be more of a bend at the bottom where the trousers could actually be covering your laces. Once again, it's a stylistic touch and all about what you prefer. But one thing that doesn't fit into that category is what's called a negative break. So the first thing that I want to bring to your attention is you don't want your socks to show while you're standing still. Now, there is a chance that you might show just a little bit of socks. Like if somebody's at eye level with your feet, they'll be able to see that the sock is peeking through just slightly if you don't have a break. But what are the chances of somebody really laying that close to your feet to where they are at eye level with your feet, man? If somebody's at eye level with your feet, I don't think that they'll be down there paying attention to if the socks are showing or not. That guy's in pretty bad shape, man. You know? But that's the first rule. You want to make sure that the trousers are long enough. That way you're not showing socks. As I was saying, the break is a matter of preference. So even though I don't do a break, you're still not able to see my socks when I'm standing still. Now, once I start moving, all bets are off. You will definitely see my socks then. But when I'm standing still, you shouldn't be able to see my socks. The second thing is having the trousers be too long, and that way they puddle at your ankles. This is the same exact deal as I was saying when your jacket sleeve is too long. It looks like you're wearing your dad's jacket. Same exact thing if your trousers are too long. And in a lot of cases, they can even drag on the floor and actually damage the hem because they are under your feet when you're standing or walking. That doesn't really make any sense, man. So you want to make sure that the length is just right. Once again, the break, that's something different. Because even if you prefer a full break, it still shouldn't puddle at your ankles. Now, the third thing is you want the waist of the trousers to be at your natural waist. And your natural waist is at your belly button. A lot of guys think that the natural waist is at their hips because that's where they're used to wearing their jeans, for example. But where you wear your jeans shouldn't be at the same spot that you wear your suit trousers. So it should be around your belly button. Now, I know that's not always easy because it depends on how long the rise of the trousers are. So if you're buying suits from brands that are really fashion forward, a lot of them have really low rises. So that way you can even have the trousers high enough to be nowhere near your belly button. And you have to worry about your hips. And in that case, I would definitely recommend that you stay away from stores like that because it's just not a good look. So you definitely want the trousers to be high enough that it's close to your belly button. And also, you don't want to sag your trousers. I've seen guys do that because that's how they're used to wearing their jeans. I mean, what's the point of wearing a suit if you're going to be sagging your trousers, man? Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I've seen it. You don't want to do that. That's not cool, you know? And the last thing when it comes to trousers is the width. Like, you definitely don't want the trousers to be too baggy. And at the same time, you don't want the trousers to be too tight. Too baggy just doesn't look right. I don't know if you guys remember, there was a picture of Tracy McGrady that went viral where I think he was working for NBA TV or something. And he was wearing these trousers that were so big. You know, so you don't want to do that at all. But at the same time, you don't want the trousers to be too tight. I used to work with a guy, and that was back when I worked in the menswear industry. So he was a custom clothier just like I was. So we were actually giving people style advice and taking their measurements and making them suits. But those trousers used to be so tight. Every time he got up, he had to stump his feet just to be able to get the trousers down to his ankles. Because every time he sat down, the hem of the trousers would get caught on his calves, man. Oh my God, that was the funniest thing. Whenever you hear a noise in the office, that was bro stomping his feet because he just got up from his chair. I don't know why somebody would want to live like that, but it's out there, man. But yeah, man, you don't want the trousers to be too tight, but you also don't want them to be too baggy. Now, one thing that you will notice is some guys do prefer the trousers to be wider because they want to have a nicer drape. You'll see guys with their cuff opening be around 10 to 12 inches. And that is one thing that I do attribute to personal style. Personally, I like an 8-inch cuff, but that's just the way that I like it. You know what I'm saying? So if you're one of those guys that like the drape and you want your trousers cuff to be around 12 inches, man, more power to you. Personally, I don't love it because I don't like the extremes, man. Whether it's up or down, I like to be somewhere in the center, you know? So 8-inch cuffs work perfectly for me. It's not too wide, definitely not too skinny. Fits just right. But yeah, some guys do prefer to have a nicer drape. And once again, it is what it is. So just to recap, your trousers are very important, even though you don't see them as much as you see the jacket. And you definitely want them to be long enough. That way your socks aren't visible while you're standing still. The trousers shouldn't bunch up at your ankles because they are too long. That's not a good look. The waist of the trousers should be at your natural waist, which is around your belly button. And last but not least, you don't want the trousers to be too baggy, but you definitely do not want them to be too tight. Now, what happens if there's an emergency and you have to run? So you want the trousers to be just right, man. Definitely don't want them to be too tight. So those are the things that I'd say you have to pay attention to when it comes to fit. Now, one funny story, because fit is a rite of passage, man. If you're really into menswear, chances are you started off wearing your suit too tight. With me, it's like in the beginning, I didn't care about suits. So when that time came after high school that I had to get a suit because one of my friends passed away and I had to attend the funeral, it was a black suit that was way too big. But that's how most guys that don't like to dress up wear their suits. So I've been that guy. But once I started getting into menswear, reading GQ magazine and, looking at guys on Tumblr, I used to definitely wear my suits too tight. So even when I worked in the menswear industry from 2011 to 2013, it wasn't until the tail end of my tenure there that I started to realize that my suits were way too tight. So this is a segment of the podcast that I like to call I Have a Story to Tell. So as I was saying, I used to work in the menswear industry as a custom clothier. So we had a deal that we were offering to luxury dealerships where if one of the clients bought a car, we would offer said client a custom suit. But the key was it was an entry-level custom suit, and we were hoping that we would be able to upsell them to a more expensive suit because somebody's buying, let's say, a Mercedes or something. Chances are they have cash to be able to get themselves a nice custom suit. At least that was the idea, and it worked pretty well. So we would go to luxury dealerships and, try to pitch the GM or the manager on the deal. And there's a Ferrari dealership in my county. It's a Ferrari/BMW dealership. And I went there to go meet with the manager so that I can pitch them on the deal. He happened to be an older Italian gentleman. So I went there looking like $1 million, man. I remember I was wearing a navy suit. I think it was navy. It could have been charcoal. And light brown shoes, thinking I'm really doing it. So I met up with him. We had to sit down. I explained to him how to do work. And he sounded like he was very interested. So as we were wrapping up the meeting and I'm getting ready to leave, he goes to me, let me ask you a question. Is that the way that your suit is supposed to fit? Now, question caught me off guard. I really wasn't expecting that one. So I was like, yeah, that's the way that we wear our suits now. That's the new style. He goes, is that right? I was like, yeah, that's how we do it now. He goes, oh, okay. We'll be in touch. Needless to say, I never heard from him again. Yo, when I tell you that the suit that I was wearing was tight, because back then, man, I really thought that's the way that a suit was supposed to fit. And he called me out on it, even though he didn't really tell me, no, it's not supposed to fit this way, or you're doing it wrong. Just by him asking me the question and the way that he reacted when I told him that was, the new style, I knew that I was never going to hear from that guy again. Now, even though I forgot about it shortly after it happened, it's not like I went home and started looking at my suits sideways or anything like that. But when I did, a couple years later, start to realize that the way that I'm wearing my suits is definitely not the right way, that definitely came back up, and I was like, wow, that's why that guy asked me, is that the way that my suit is supposed to fit? So it's one of those things, man. Now, you might not think that somebody's paying attention. They're paying attention, man. Somebody might not even be into menswear like that, but they can tell that this is way too tight and his pants are way too short, or his socks really supposed to be showing like that. Like those are things that people notice, even if they're not really into menswear, But at the same time, a lot of people do equate that to a good fit. I don't really know where that came from. Some people refer to it as the European fit. I mean, poor Europeans, man. Do not blame them for this. I have plenty of European friends that do not look like that. You know what I mean? So I don't really know why people refer to it as the European fit, but it's not a good look, man. And when we're talking about slim fit, people also mention slim fit when they're referring to their suits. Slim fit is really for your shirts, not for your suit jacket. So you want the suit to fit. You don't want it to be too big. You don't want it to be too tight. Now, at the same time, I'm not saying that somebody cannot wear a tight suit if they want to. You can do whatever you want, man. When it really bothers me is when a person is in a tight suit and he try to give menswear advice. You know what I mean? I remember I did a video about this a few years ago. I'll include it in the show notes. I remember my guy Jesse on Instagram. He's not on Instagram anymore. But he was one of the few guys when he bought his suit jackets from Spee and McKay. He needed very little alteration because for whatever reason, it was like the jacket was made for him. And I was reading his comments one day and I saw a guy that told him the jacket is too big. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how could you think that this is too big? So I went to the guy's page and I couldn't believe how tight his clothes were. And this was a guy that was a little bit older too, So I think I replied to him like, no way, bro. There's no way that this jacket is too big. And, he came back and said something like, let's see who has a better fit, me or him, like go to my page or something like that. And it turned into this big thing. Long story short, I had made a video about it. It got so bad for him that he had to change his name on Instagram and made his account private because so many people was going to his page to laugh at him. That wasn't my intention at all. But I'm bringing this up to say, if you want to wear your suit tight, hey, so be it. But don't put yourself in a position where you're giving menswear advice. I saw another guy also a couple months ago. He posted a video. He was some kind of menswear guru. He posted a video and I'm going to quote him verbatim. He said, you should shorten your jacket to show about 1 inch of ass. This is a true story, man. I've actually reposted that video on my Instagram when it happened. I couldn't believe my eyes, man. And hearing me say that, you're probably thinking this is a guy that's in his 20s, right? Not at all, man. This guy was in his 50s, man. At least he looked it. He definitely looked older than me, although there's a chance that he wasn't. But what kind of advice is that? So if you're going to be wearing your tight suits or your short suit jackets or whatever it is, do you, man, but don't try to give people advice because it's just not right. You know what I mean? Another example I can give you is I compare it to steak. Everybody knows that your steak should be medium rare, but some guys like to eat their steaks well done. I mean, it's cool if that's the way you like it. You're the one that got to eat it. But don't try to make yourself some kind of authority when it comes to steaks and telling people they should be eating their steaks well done. You know what I mean? But if you go, I know that it's supposed to be medium rare, but I don't really like it medium rare. I like mine's well done. Hey, man, more power to you. Same way I feel about suits. You want to wear your tight suits? So be it, man. But don't try to tell people this is the way that it should be. You know what I mean? Just say like, yo, I know that I'm not wearing my suits right. I know I can barely breathe, but that's the way that I like it. I respect that. That's all I'm saying. So this is the segment where I invite my listeners to leave me a voice note and I play it live on the podcast. But since this is the first episode that I'm recording, I had posed the question to my followers on Instagram. And the question was, when did you decide to start dressing well and what was the reason? So let me just let you hear it and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Yo, what's up, Vlad? This is Sal from St. Louis, Missouri. And I would have to say I decided to start dressing well probably in high school. I was, I guess you could say I've always had a deep love for tailored clothing and menswear. And me and my boy Danny, we were actually known around the school for being the best dressed. You know, we would always try to, one up each other and be like, all right, I'm going to rock this today. And he's like, oh, I'm going to rock this today. It was around the time when, the first Nike Air Yeezys came out. And I was like, man, everybody was like, man, this guy's actually got the Yeezys. Like, this guy's legit. It's kind of set the mold. And then I was actually featured in my high school's yearbook, one of the best dressed and most uniquely dressed guys in school. And the second guy was my boy Danny. And so, that really set the tone and really, showed me that there's influence in the way that you dress and the way that you look. And it's very powerful. And then also I have to give, a lot of respect and credit to the Tumblr scene at the time. And, all the guys, like Angel Ramos and Mark Cho and Alan C over at the Armory, those guys are just putting on. And then you just, see all these, really stylish, old Italian gentlemen, coming out of the pity scene and, like Lino and other guys, man, Fabio, Tommaso, and just, a lot of these stylish Italian guys that just were really putting on the scene. And it really influenced me in my style and my taste and my dress. And I was like, oh man, I gotta, try to step up my game. And also, I have to give mad love and respect to my boy Wale over at A Curated Man as well. He was doing his thing and he was, putting on for St. Louis, man. That really inspired me as well. So yeah, that's what I would say, man. I would definitely say that, dressing better has a lot of weight, has a lot of influence, and it has a lot to do with how you're viewed in this world, especially as a Black man. So yeah, man, it's always good to be here, brother. I appreciate you letting me stop in.
Crazy story about Sal, man. He's one of the few dudes that was doing classic menswear at around 17, 18 years old. When I was 17 and 18, you couldn't pay me to wear a suit, man. And I remember him because back then is when I worked at Astor and Black, which is the custom clothing company that I used to work for. And we had a private Facebook group. And I remember one of the guys on there, I believe he was Angel Ramos. I believe it was him that posted it, but don't have me lying because we're talking about around 2012 here. So I definitely don't remember 2022, let alone 2012. But I think it was Angel that posted a blog about Sal and how his prom was coming up. And, he was looking to get a really nice outfit for his prom. And this dude was already into classic menswear, once again at like 17, 18 years old. And I remember being blown away by that because, once again, this is not normal. Typically at that age, guys are not really thinking about classic menswear. You know what I mean? So I've always respected him for that. And, I'm a follower of his on Instagram since I got on Instagram. And I'm glad that he was my first guest and was willing to participate, because the question that I had asked, as you can hear for yourself, Sal really nailed it. So thank you for checking out I'm Not a Gentleman. If you like this episode, follow the podcast and leave your boy a 5-star review. Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Vladimir Riché for behind the scenes footage, early access to episodes, and bonus content. Tune in again next week for another dope episode of I'm Not a Gentleman. Peace.
Back in that bag again. Whoa, oh, yeah. Hey. Back in that, yeah. Tell them to watch it.